Hey everybody, I'm Tommy, and you are on the Love Boat. What's happening, peoples? Tell you what, this is going to be a different one. Hey Todd, good to see you. Monk. Dane, good to see you. Jeremy Fowler, Jane Aldrich, Lisa Ayers. Lisa, thank you for the support. I really appreciate you. Sandy Wandy, what's happening? Kristen Melinda, glad that you are here. Jane Aldrich, you get the comment award. You're on fire. Folks, this is going to be one of those shows where we talk about a little bit of critical thinking. Right? We did a show on this a while back, but we're going to hammer it today. Alex Moore, good to see you. Pooh Bear 007, glad you're here. Let's see. Just Joan. Haven't said much, but I believe there is truth. One truth. You know what? Boy, oh boy. There's no such thing as your truth, is there? I always hated that. Kimberly, good to see you. Hey, Kellyanne. Ms. Rose, how are you? Hey, Roberta. Hi, everyone. I haven't said much, but I believe there is truth. One truth. And then there are lies. Only way to know is to see the evidence. Hiding it to me is another name for a lie. I can't wait to vote. Tell you what, I completely understand where you're coming from. Amy, how are you? Glad you're here. Here I am, a Rocket Queen. Oh, yeah. Hey, Rocket Queen. Welcome to the boat. So, a lot of really ugly stuff going on in our country, or your country. It's still my country. It's still always going to be my country, even if I'm not living there. Cliffan, how are you? But it's odd to look at it from the outside in. It's a very, very different feeling. Renee B, there you are. Chickadee Cola, what's happening? And we did a show a while back on critical thinking. And I talked about some of the things that people say. And I started to research it. And I was able to show you guys that some of these people that call themselves alpha males are absolute just horrible liars. And we're going to talk about some things today that, hey, Andy Paul, the UK is watching. I love it. Welcome. We're going to talk about some things that I haven't heard anyone else talk about today. And you're going to have to figure out for yourself, hey, Barbara, why it is that we're not hearing anybody say some of the things that you're going to hear today. Because to me, it is blatant and ugly dishonesty. I have to agree with my friend. There is one truth. Whidbey Island hippie girl, good to see you. There's only one truth. There's not my truth, your truth, somebody telling their truth. There's the truth, and then there's BS. And there is BS by omission. Hey, Audra, good to see you. Kimberly, it has to be relieving to be in another country and not the U.S. anymore. I've gotten very weary of our country. I'd probably leave if I could. I bet if I had $1 for every person that has sent me an email or a message that said something like that, I would not need another super chat again as long as I lived. We could support ourselves just on that. And that's sad, isn't it? It really is. It's not a feeling that I think most people enjoy. It's painful. And in my opinion, it's the realization that nothing that we see is the truth. Tommy Bird, good to see you. Isn't critical thinking an oxymoron for most? Yeah, it is. It's sadly it is. Brock Bandy, good to see you. It's like so many other things, you know, where it would be really nice if everyone weren't going out of their way to deceive, right? I don't think we know what's going on with the Epstein thing. Hold on one second. This shouldn't take long. Just bear with me. Let me do this real quick. Sorry, folks. Bear with me. It's a camera issue, and it's one that I got to take care of. It'll only take 1 second. I promise. There we go. Let's do away with that. There we go. I think that that's going to be better. If I'm wrong, I'll probably regret it later, but I think that's going to help. Dane, good to see you. It is a messed up, beautiful country. You know what? The amber waves of grain, right? The Purple Mountain Majesty, all of the people in the country. I love Americans. I really do. But we have a broken political system, and it's broken to a point where it makes you question whether or not it could ever be put back together again. Yukon Cragnelius, good to see you. I pray, right, literally, that we're not too far gone. I don't want to believe that anybody is too far gone from anything ever. Chili Phil, how are you? And you're talking to a convicted bank robber, right? And a guy that spent 30 years doing heroin. I have to believe that nothing is too broken to put back together. Days of the week, how are you? Tony's Hooter, there you are. But it's hard to keep that process going in my head. Hey, Nora, very broken. It always was it always? No, it wasn't. It wasn't always broken. You know the proof of that? Back in the day, after our first president was in the process of getting ready to leave office, They got together and voted, no lie, this is the truth, you can research this, to make him king. How about that? You want to talk about somebody that wasn't a politician in the sense of the word we use it today? Can you imagine if any president that we've ever had, they unanimously voted to make him king, right? Or her king or whatever? Do you think that any politician today would go, no, I don't want that? He went in and said in the parlance of the day, you have bumped your heads. This is what we just ran to get away from. This is not going to happen, right? You guys are crazy. And then he went back to being what he was, right? Go home and become a farmer. One of the problems that I believe is that plagues America, North America, more than anything else, is that we have professional politicians, right? I've talked much over the years about the fact that, hey, DNV, that politicians were cool voting against the wall when a couple of years earlier they had voted for the wall, right? Barack Obama voted for the wall. All the Democrats voted for the wall until it gave Republicans a win. And then they said, no, we're not going to vote for it because it will give the other side a win. In the process of that haranguing back and forth, about 1 million people have overdosed. About 1 million, right? That's a horrific number of deaths that a great deal of them could have been avoided. At one time, I'm not, it's scary to think, the good old days, right? When the drugs on the street were heroin and people were safer. Heroin, people overdose on heroin all the time. But the truth of the matter is, if the people there know what to do, you can always save that person. And that's not the case with the drugs on the street today. And I have also talked about how the political system got off track. And one of the things that really destroyed government in the United States of America is the earmark. Hey, Monk, good to see you. The earmark is something that you put at the bottom of a bill. So let's say you have a bill, and the bill is this. Let's say the bill is, I got a bill on the floor, and the bill says, we're going to kill crippled children. If a child happens to be crippled, we're just going to kill them, right? Now, obviously, no one's going to vote for that. That's a horrific idea. This is terrible. No, obviously, nobody would vote for that. Well, what if then I put on there an earmark that says, on top of that, I think that we should fund breakfasts in schools for kids who cannot afford to eat. My shirt is the lyrics to a Talking Heads song. I believe that at least 80% are upstanding and moral people. They're the silent majority. Do you mean politicians, or do you mean people in America? Because I do not believe that 80% of politicians are good, solid people anymore. You can't be, unfortunately. And the earmark is a perfect example. So we have a bill out there to kill crippled children. And then attached to that bill in an earmark, we have another thing added to it that says we're going to fund breakfast and lunch in schools for kids that can't afford it. Obviously, they're going to vote against the bill because the bill in itself is to do something terrible, right? But then later they can come out and go, do you know that Tommy Scoville voted against feeding kids who couldn't afford to eat breakfast and lunch? You can't believe anything that people say anymore. So today I'm doing some research. Citizens, I agree with you on that. I really do agree with you on that. I think that even more than 80% of the citizens in the country are solid people that just want the best for their families. Unfortunately, it's become a sports team thing, hasn't it? It's become a red and a blue, right? And it's us against them. And those people are wrong, and these people are wrong. And it's really divided us in a way that is super unhealthy. So we all know what's going on with Jeffrey Epstein. I've been talking about it for days. For always, forever, for love. Good to see you. Well, it's just me. I'm afraid Johnny is laying down again. Johnny is sick. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're living a different life, and a lot of poisons are getting out of our body. The Bee Lady, glad you're here. Chili Phil, my school gave free lunches. Well, they should. I believe that that's a thing. Dane Young, AI is almost to a point where you can't believe anything you see. There's some truth to that. A lot is coming out about how the videos that we saw of Epstein's cell and all of that, that apparently was augmented. They're also claiming that that missing minute goes all the way back to Y2K. Just not buying that. And when Pam Bondi says, we got to go find some video so that we can see whether or not, we need to find other video to make sure that it does actually lose a minute every single day. How harsh is that? How hard? Look at the day before. That ought to do it. Look at the day after, right? What do you mean you have to go research it? If it does it every night, pick any random ass day and you could prove it to us. I don't think that's the case. I think everything that's going on right now is designed, hello, Barbara, is designed to obfuscate, right? They don't want the truth out. Now, there was a bill that went in the House of Representatives to release all of the Epstein files, right? Now, nobody's going to vote against that bill. Why would they? Especially Republicans, because they ran on releasing the Epstein files, right? Now, you got to believe that if that came out, a lot of the Republicans are going to vote for that, if not every single one of them, right? So the Republicans didn't vote for it. And I'm sitting at the House scratching my head going, so they just don't want to give the other side, right, a win. This was written by a Democrat, and they don't want to give them a win. That's got to be the reason that they're voting against it. Am I right? It's got to be. She was acting like they rewound a VHS tape every night. That's exactly right. Mike, Archangel, says it was 62 seconds. Timed task execute at the beginning of the minute, not the end. Okay, 62 seconds. Thank you. Yeah, she is acting like it was a VHS tape kind of a thing. Release the Kraken, says Kellyanne. Okay, so here we go. I wanted a list of all of the Republicans that voted against a bill that was going to allow the Epstein files to be released. And I thought, you know what would be a really good idea is if maybe we outed all of these people, right? Because if they're putting politics and making them more important than the 1,000 victims of this, because no matter how hard they try to tell you that, you know, this isn't what we thought it was, everybody says there were 1,000 victims. That's 1,000 molested kids, right? Girls, 1,000 of them. That's not okay. Andrew B., good to see you. Yes, I agree. I'm sorry. So I want to out these people. So I decided to go and I made a list of all of these people, and I was going to read the names on the Love Boat. I wanted people to hear who these people are who were content, right, with 1,000 victims not getting justice. People that were content to say, well, we wanted that released when we were campaigning on it, but we don't want it released now. So because this brings out the emotion in us more than anything else, the logical part of my brain hopped in the back seat and I was ready to burn some people at the stake. And as I was making the list, I thought to myself, wait a second. What am I missing? Right? What am I missing? I'm old as heck, but I had a suspicion and an uncomfortable situation with Ted Kennedy when I was 16, and you would have been right? Chappaquiddick. I'm trying to think of the name of the girl that Kopechne, I believe was her last name, right? Carrie Kopechne. He killed her, got away with it, right? Didn't report her death for how many hours? He had to go home and get sober. Heinous. It didn't even get him thrown out of office. So it gets crazier, folks. I'm getting ready to out these people, and it occurred to me that I didn't read the bill. So how do I know it is a bill? How do I know it's not an earmark? How do I know that the Republicans weren't voting against the bill and that this Epstein thing was an afterthought? So I decided I would pull the bill up. You know what the name of the bill is? The name of the bill is called the Genius Act. Well, that doesn't sound like it would have something to do with Epstein, does it? Honestly, it should be called the Epstein bill or the Epstein Act, shouldn't it? He called everyone but 9/11. You're right, Mike. It's exactly what went down. He called everybody but 9/11. It's cool in a weird way that it seems like we're unifying. You know something? You stole how I was going to end this show, but I will get back to that, Dane, because I think that there's a potential here for people on both sides of the aisle to go, I don't care if you're blue or red. 1,000 girls got molested, and they got molested so that people could use it, right? This was a plan. This wasn't somebody that went and looked at, the typical weirdo in a trench coat, right, in front of a school. No, this was organized. This was something that, there were people to procure the girls. There were people to bring the girls there. This was a system. This was systematically designed for the purpose to molest these people. And that's hideous. So I wanted to know what this Genius Act was. And the Genius Act actually has a whole lot to do with assets, particularly assets like cryptocurrency. So were the Republicans voting against putting the Epstein files on the floor? No. Andy Paul, good Lord, you don't want me in office. But thank you. I appreciate the confidence, but I don't think I'm the guy you want in office. So what they did is they knew that the Republicans were going to vote against the Genius Act. So they put an earmark on that bad boy so that this was a procedural measure. It wasn't they didn't bring this to the floor and say, let's vote on it. Don't let them lie to you. Now, by the way, if you think I'm defending the Republicans, then you haven't been watching the last couple of shows. I'm not defending them. But how come no one is saying this, right? What you're hearing is the Republicans voted to not allow this. Well, that's not what they voted on. Now, I want to see them get a bill put out that is just about Epstein. And then let's see who votes for it and against it. Because this is more BS, right? This is more BS. They used to at least have a commission to cover these things up. Dan, it's actually a great comment, right? Really, that's a great comment. Nowadays, it's just policy, right? To BS the entire populace of the country is just pro forma now. But they're lying to us about this. Mayor of YouTube, I'll run for that. I like that as an idea. There you go. I would take that. But we're not hearing the truth. And I started to go and look at the big news organizations because I wanted to hear somebody say, that's not what they were voting on. They were voting on the Genius Act. They weren't voting on whether or not to release the Epstein files. That's a lie. Sorry, it is. It's a lie. Why is it that even the Republican channels are still running with that lie? Did they not do the research? I mean, admittedly, it did take me about 3 minutes. Unbelievable how much we're being lied to across the board on everything. And it now makes you question literally every single other thing you hear. Now, another thing that happened, we talked yesterday about the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell has an appeal. It's been put off a couple of times, but it's coming up, and the government needs to, they need to rule on this. They're going to have to make a decision, right? The Department of Justice, whether or not they're going to allow this appeal to go through, because all of our other appeals have been shot down. Now it's at the Supreme Court. But the appeal has changed somewhat. And like I said the other day, they had a deal. And the deal was that Jeffrey Epstein was going to give something. We don't know what it was, but he gave information to the FBI. And the FBI, in return, said, we're not going to confiscate your property. You know, the one where he molested these girls, right? Raped them. We're not going to seize that property. And we're also not going to charge you with federal crimes. In the Southern District in Florida or any other district, you're protected from federal stuff because of something he gave the FBI. We don't know what he gave him, right? Now, the person that cut the deal with him ended up becoming a cabinet position, right? His last name was Acosta. Became a cabinet position in Trump's first term. He got a really cushy job. And it makes you wonder whether or not what happened in that got him that cushy job. And that's frustrating to think about. But I've said, and I still believe this, that when you become president of the United States, hey, Joey girl, somebody shows up and says, hey, don't think you're president, because that's not the truth. I'm going to get on Bongino and Patel. I promise. Stick around. We will be talking about that. I'm not sure if you covered this already, but Ivanka said, there's something more to come on the topic. Did you catch that? Was that all she said? Everybody that has anything to do with this administration that isn't actually elected. They don't want elected officials leaking this stuff because they want it to look as if this is someone going, well, you know what? Say what you will about Donald Trump, whether you like him or hate him. He does this number all the time. He is taking the temperature of the American people and seeing which way the wind blows on a daily basis. Right? Most presidents do, but he's big into it. You know, he tweeted more than any president in the world. It really angered a lot of people how much time he spent communicating with people on social media. But like it or hate it, it is someone talking to, right, government. Todd says, I jokingly say that they show another film of Kennedy being killed and tell the president that they are really in charge. Todd, I made that same joke, no lie, where he gets in office and they say to him, hey, do you remember that thing in 1963? I believe there's probably something to that. Sadly, I really do. Were you aware that AG Pam Bondi has had a peripheral relationship with Scientology? Somebody emailed me that today. I was not aware of that prior to today, Renee B. But I absolutely am going to look into it. But everyone is now saying that there's more to come out. Days of the week, I wouldn't go as far as to say he's the worst president ever, but everybody is entitled to their opinion. In fact, if we had time, I could make some arguments for you of the worst presidents in the world, and it would be pretty easy to knock that down, in my opinion. However, I understand why people feel the way that they do right now. I feel lied to. I think a lot of other people feel lied to. What really bums me out is exactly what's happening, because I'm really curious as to why the change. Because make no mistake, part of the campaign, part of running for president was, you know what, days of the week, somebody with a wrench, be ready, because days of the week is about to leave. I'm sorry. We're not here to choose sides and sling shit at the other side. And if that's your get down, then we'll just get rid of you. So you hate every Republican. Reagan, I could make you arguments all day long for what Reagan did for this country. The Cold War was over when he left. Maybe you were sleeping during that. But we're not doing this. You want to do the left and right and the blue and the red. We're talking about 1,000 girls who were molested. You want to sling shit at the Republicans, do it on somebody else's channel. Sorry, not having it. Tommy, the way Epstein's sweetheart deal was written, I don't think Ghislaine was covered in it. She was. So I read part of the deal that they did not redact, and it says Epstein and any co-conspirators. And make no mistake, she's the only co-conspirator, right, that we know of. Who else is any co-conspirator? But she got a 20-year sentence, right, in spite of the fact that they cut a deal with Jeffrey Epstein and with Ghislaine Maxwell that there would be nothing else that would come out, right? Now, I don't know what that deal was. Yes, Acosta accosted our whole society with that deal. Not only was he doing weekends, he didn't even have to do it in general population, right? He wasn't even having to go and do time next to somebody that could give him hell, right? I mean, after all, he's a child molester. Inmates don't like child molesters. He also claimed he was going to drain the swamp. Look, there's a lot of problems, no question. I'm pissed. I hope everybody is. I hope everybody is. But to run on one of your absolute pillars of your entire campaign is we're outing the people that hurt these kids. If you then get to a point where you go, well, all of that was just a conspiracy theory. Number one, you just gave an absolute get out of jail free card to Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, whether you did that on purpose or that's just part of the deal, there's no way, right? Now she can say, wait a second. If none of this is real, what am I doing 20 years in prison for? If there were no people, right? There's no list of people that was a client list, a list of clients, people that went to the island and molested kids. I don't care how you word it, because they're playing that game all the time now. Well, there isn't a client list. We got a van load or a truckload of information, but there's not a client list. I don't care what you call it, right? We know that there was cash that was flying around because there's a lawsuit currently pending, like a class action deal on behalf of some of those 1,000 victims to go after the accountant of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, admittedly, they're probably doing the accountant because there's nobody else left, which is why Ghislaine Maxwell went to prison. Because once Epstein was dead, well, they needed somebody to punish. The American people weren't going to sit by and go, well, he's dead, so no big deal, right? No harm, no foul. We're just going to have to let that one go. It doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't. According to their logic, she should walk. Dane Young, right? How else can you look at this? If the president of the United States says, yeah, the last administration built this up to be something that it isn't, and it's really just a conspiracy theory. Epstein wasn't doing any of this stuff. Then why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison? I'll tell you why she's in prison. She's in prison for pimping, any way you shake it, pimping, pandering, whatever you want to call it. She was selling children for sex. And I was looking at some old interviews from the Gouffre, right? And listening to some of the things, and it's unpleasant, so I'm going to warn you in advance, right? But she was taught how to give blowjobs, and I'm saying that because that's the word she used, right? I could church it up, but I'm not going to. She was taught how to give blowjobs by Ghislaine Maxwell and then perform them on Epstein so that he could tell her what she was doing wrong. They were training these girls, not grooming them, training them. And they were picking these girls off and targeting them by design. People who came from families that weren't taking care of them financially, people that came from families where they were really struggling, and people who were out working, right? They were all underage people that had jobs. That's how they hunted them down. Like your father and his friend, I can discuss and respect people from both sides. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Because I'll tell you something. If your take is everybody from the left sucks, or your take is everybody from the right sucks, you can't even have an intelligent dialogue, right? You can be an ideologue, but a dialogue will actually help people figure out, look, I'm here on a nightly basis hammering on the party I voted for. But there are so many people who go, you know what, that's my guy, and he can't do any wrong. Well, then you're an idiot. Then you're an idiot. If you vote for somebody and then you go, well, I voted for him, so by any means necessary, right? As long as the country is moving forward, who cares how he does it? Well, if how he's doing it, right? If you get a bill that goes through that has something to do with not taxing income, you're not going to get 100% of the vote ever. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. It's just an opinion. It's not a fact. But I'm blown away that they had a law that said, they had a bill that came out that said, we're not going to tax tips ever again. And it got unanimous approval. That makes me nervous. It does. It also makes me nervous that the president of the United States was doing everything possible to bring Iran to the table. And 2 weeks later, he was bombing them. I feel like the Israelis work this country. It's just my opinion. Ghislaine was groomed by her father as a child, and Epstein took advantage of that. Sad, but no excuse. Renee B., I think she was on the clock. That's my opinion. It's just an opinion. I could be wrong. But I believe Ghislaine Maxwell was on the clock, right? Her dad absolutely groomed her, but I don't think he groomed her in the same sense of the word that we're used to. He groomed her to be a good Mossad agent. That's what he groomed her to be. And I think that for better or worse, she's a hell of a agent for the Mossad. No two ways about it. She is absolutely dedicated, 100%. If she wasn't, she could have started screaming really early on, hey, you got any idea what's going on? Sorry, people, I'm looking for notes. But she didn't do that, right? She didn't start screaming, I got a client list before she went to court. And most people would say the logical thing would be for her to scream, I got a client list. Why would I want to do 20 years? Well, if you have a client list, then you have to out the people that made this happen, right? I don't think she could have gone in there and just put it completely on to Epstein. If she was going to go in there, she might have to say, I was working for blah, right? I was working for the, Ghislaine's dad was Mossad and MI6. She was groomed all right, groomed to be the intelligence field. Yeah. Some think she was the real power and Epstein was the front man. I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with the people that you say. I do think that she ran the show. I do. And I think that he was the front man, but I think Ghislaine Maxwell was the brains behind it. And her dad was a Mossad agent. Why would her dad leave everything, right? Give it to him prior to his death, but right before his death. Give him the Mirror, give him the Daily News, all of these assets. Here you go, Jeff. Good looking out. Thanks for dating my daughter. Does that make sense to anybody? Because it doesn't to me. I do like Republicans, and there are definitely Democrats who are not good people. Just like I don't think our president really cares about us. I don't think at this point I think it would be a lot more difficult to find somebody that wasn't dirty. I'm sorry. But it's the name of the guy that walked around with the lantern, Diogenes, right? Walking around with a lit lantern during the day from mythology. He would walk around all day long with a lit lantern. And when people would say, "What are you doing?" He'd say, "I'm looking for an honest man." Well, you may as well shine a flashlight during the day, right, to try to find an honest politician. I'm sorry, but I think most of them show up with the belief that they're there to serve. They're going to show up and they're going to be good people and they're going to make a difference. I think that's why most people get into politics. And then unfortunately, reality sets in and they start meeting people and these people say, "Hey, by the way, you might want to buy some stock in company XYZ. What? Yeah, no, trust me. I sit on this committee and we just found out that this company is in a load of trouble. So short their stock, bet against them. You'll get rich overnight." And you know what? Now you're in. Now you take a job that might pay you a couple $100,000 a year and instantly become filthy rich. That's why these people show up in office making literally, what do they make? $300,000 a year or whatever, and get rich, filthy freaking rich. Because you want to talk about a job that allows you to print money. The example I use all the time because it's just such a great example is, let's say you're on the National Transportation and Safety Board. That doesn't jump off the page at an easy way to rip people off, right? National Transportation and Safety Board. But a plane crashes, right? And you're trying to figure out who is at fault. And they take that big airplane hangar and they start putting the pieces of the plane back together, right? Like it's a puzzle piece. And then they're going to decide whether or not it's the fault of the airlines. Let's say Delta for laughs. Is it Delta's fault that that plane went back? Or is it Callaway and Company? Hey, Brandon Callaway, it's Callaway and Company. The people that work on the engines, is it their fault? Who is at fault? Now, the people on the National Transportation and Safety Board, the NTSB, hey, Zero Fox Given, they're going to know weeks ahead of time, right, exactly what the deal is. So if you have 2 weeks to get prepared for that, and you find out that the fault is going to be with Callaway, the people that were repairing the engines, and it's not Delta's fault, then you could bet on Delta stock to go up, and you could bet on Callaway to go down. Short one, go long on the other. And in one day, you could be rich. That's scary as hell, but it's an absolute fact of how things go on in that town. You know, they were pushing this year during the campaign and all of that to pass a bill to make insider trading illegal for politicians. What? How in hell did it take until 2025 for that to be a law? Well, they like making money. They like to be able to take the information that they have and then turn it into ludicrous amounts of money. Why the hell else would a politician want to work in Washington for 30 years? Well, it's a lot of money, isn't it? And it's also a kind of power that no one else can wrap their brain around. As soon as you're elected, now you can live like you are a king. Just like the people who got wealthy shorting the airlines just before 9/11 and made a fortune. Todd, do you know that the largest short in the history of the stock market, it's not just that people were shorting it. There's never been a bigger one. There were people betting against American Airlines, shorting the hell out of it. Now, you're going to tell me that we don't have the technology to find out who those people were? I don't care how many shell companies. I don't buy that. I don't buy that we don't know everything that went on for that. It's just too stupid to not, I mean, the logic isn't there. If there are people out there literally betting hundreds of millions of dollars that American Airlines stock is going to tank, they knew what was coming. You can't track that down and find out who those people are and how they found that out. El says they're Zionist. You know what? It's hard to argue that. I'm not trying to get into a fight with people about Israel. I'm not. But I'm sorry. It doesn't. Nothing else passes the smell test to me. When a former prime minister of Israel met privately with Jeffrey Epstein 30 times after he had been convicted of being a child molester. And then when pressed on it, he says, yeah, I never heard about that. Come on, man. Doesn't make any sense at all. Why would a former prime minister be meeting with an American citizen, right, in the first place? 30 times? Well, obviously he was working for the Israelis. And Ari Ben Mashani, in the book that just came out, admitted that Ghislaine Maxwell, he was her handler. He was the boss that ran her operations. And with nothing at all held back, he said, 100% Epstein worked for us. That's it. It's a Mossad agent, right, who said, yeah, that was a honey trap. That whole thing was set up to do exactly what you think it did. And it was the Israelis, right? The Mossad, not the Israelis. The Israeli people don't have anything to do with this. The Mossad does. Their version of the CIA. And above the door, right, as you're walking in, it says, by any means necessary. And boy, they proved that, huh? If you got to molest 1,000 kids, at least we're going to get the power out of this, right? Where did he think he was visiting him? In a bar? Roberta, it's, I don't think he went to the island, right? That I can't find that anywhere. I think most of the visits took place in New York. But if you walked into his house in New York and saw that picture hanging over the living room, you wouldn't go, hey, what the hell is that, right? It seems odd to me that if you went into a guy's townhome and in his living room, the first thing you saw was a picture of Bill Clinton in a dress that you might not go, geez, that's peculiar, right? Why don't they charge Trump and his camp with treason? Because we trouble and here's the thing. First of all, charging a president is a difficult thing, especially a sitting president. But I think I kind of like where you're going. I think we got to get to a point where people are held to some form of accountability, because currently we don't at all. Renee B says, I'd love to be in local government, but I'm sure someone would find out my son is a felon and cancel me. I don't know how to be an appointment, but the Texas ombudsman have helped me with my son. I don't know. The previous president had a son that had a lot of trouble, right? It's probably not fair, but it's the truth, right? His son had a lot of, he got busted with blow. He got kicked out of the military. Clinton had a brother that had a whole lot of trouble. Who else? Billy Carter had some trouble, right? When his Billy Beer, he had Billy Beer, and that went under, and he found out that all of this money had been stolen. Like, this has been going on forever on both sides of the aisle, right? By the way, if it sounds like I'm not picking on any Republicans, I just can't think of one off the top of my head. But trust me when I tell you that nepotism and protecting your family has been going on since the dawn of our country. So your theory is that he was essentially a double agent. My theory is that he worked for the Mossad, right? Now, a lot of people do say that he also worked with the CIA and that he also worked with MI6. I don't know. I don't. But according to Ari Ben-Mashani, he definitely worked for the Mossad. And this guy says he was the handler of Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, you could say, well, how do we know he's telling the truth? Because the amount of balls that it takes to say that you used to work for the Mossad, man's going to have to spend the rest of his life in hiding. Like the guy who wrote the book I read. That's it. It's a wrap. You got to hide for the rest of your time on planet Earth. They have hit squads. You can read about them in the book. They're good at it. They're really good at it. Now, I'm sure we do too, right? I'm 100% sure that we do too. So my theory is that he certainly did stuff for the United States. But I think if he was actually a double agent and he was working for the U.S., he wouldn't have had to cut a deal with the FBI to avoid federal prosecution. I think it would have been a lot easier for him. But the fact that he had to cut a deal with the FBI to avoid federal prosecution would lead me to believe that he probably wasn't working for us in that fashion. I could be wrong, right? And the sad thing is we're probably never going to know. Now, here's it's hard to say anything is good news, other than the fact that in theory, this should be bringing us all together. Because I don't care who you vote for, you got to be uncomfortable with the fact that 1,000 victims are out there, and nobody denies that. And it's fascinating to me that you can say this whole thing is a hoax, but there are 1,000 victims. How does those two things add up? Maybe they all work together. I believe that they do all work together. You could actually show people understanding of so many people with a past and looking to make a positive move forward, Renee. I say go for it. It takes an amazing amount of courage to go into politics these days. It really does. Because when you run for president, they're going to go back and find a girl that you dated in the 6th grade to see what they can get for dirt on you. They're going to literally do anything possible. And I would say short of completely making stories up, but they're not beyond that in any way. I was witness to even a small town mayor had a cleanup team. His hands were never unclean in theory. Zero Fox Given, I am not surprised at all. To be extremely specific, I believe they started in Army Intel. I assume that there's some kind of important difference that I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting because it gets so cloudy, right? It really does. But some of the things that come up, that you just start going, the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell's dad gave basically his entire fortune, right, to Jeffrey Epstein prior to his death is odd, to say the least, right? He and Ghislaine weren't married, any of that crap. But I don't think there's a chance that Ghislaine Maxwell was not working for the Mossad. I don't think there's a chance of that. And I also, just my opinion, but a lot of you have reached out and said to me, he's sitting on a beach somewhere. I don't think that there's a chance of that. And the reason that I don't is he is a pedophile. I think above all else, he's a pedophile. And that's a dangerous dude. Even if you gave him, right? Even if you gave him a completely new life or tried to, the odds are pretty damn heavy that he's going to molest somebody. And when he does, then what? He's such a loose cannon. I think he's a whole lot easier dead, right? And this is a group that by any means necessary. The lobby controls us too. Lobbyists in general. When we talk about a broken government, why the hell are lobbyists allowed to exist? Lobbyists show up with bills already written and hand them to a politician who walks in and says, look at the bill I just wrote. That's disturbing. That most of our bills aren't written by politicians. They're written by businessmen, right? Who want to push something through because it's going to benefit their business. That's really, really ugly, in my opinion. Les Wexner gave him power of attorney, if I'm not mistaken, and gave him his townhouse in New York, right? This guy went from being a substitute teacher, from being a substitute teacher to being a billionaire. That doesn't make a lot of sense to most people. And that he was a substitute teacher at the Dalton School. Try to find something on him before that. It's like he went puff and just magically appeared. Prior to that, we got nothing. He was just a substitute teacher at the Dalton School out of nowhere. It's the first time he shows up. If you try deep diving that guy, that's what you're going to get. Who gave him the job? A guy by the name of Donald Barr gave him the job. Donald Barr also wrote a book called Space Relations. And it was about a fictitious planet. And in that fictitious planet, they had gotten completely out of control and they were using kids, right? They were doing exactly what Jeffrey Epstein did, literally. In the book, he basically described Epstein, but as a mythical character in a mythical place. By the way, his son was William Barr, or Bill Barr, the Attorney General of the United States of America under multiple presidents. But he was the Attorney General under Donald Trump in his first term when Epstein got killed. He was the one that came out and made the statement. The whole nothing to see here. We're really upset that they allowed this guy to kill himself, and we're going to research the hell out of that. How does someone go from a high school teacher to finance? Well, that's really an interesting question. How does a guy go from not existing to being a substitute high school teacher? Because honestly, try finding out anything about him before then. And we live in a day and age where I can find out if you farted in the 4th grade. Right? Who smelled it? Bill Barr was also under George H.W. That's correct. When H-Dub was head of the CIA. Wait a second. You can't be head of the CIA and be president. I think there's a law on that. You must be mistaken. Funny as hell, isn't it? Yeah, I do believe, honestly, that there's a law that you're not supposed to be able to ever have been the head of the CIA and then be a president. But you know that these deals and these laws, if you made a deal with Jeffrey Epstein that says you give us this and we're not going to prosecute you for any of this stuff, you or any co-conspirators, that's an awful law, right? That is an awful law. But to back up on the deal is just as disgusting. You should never make the deal. But if you do, then you back up on it. What credibility do you have? Ghislaine Maxwell is a co-conspirator, and they said that those co-conspirators didn't have anything to worry about. He must have really delivered something pretty damn good, huh? It's frightening to me. Isn't the worst thing is that in reality, those 1,000 girls is not the last. Oh, no, not the first victims of child sex trafficking, sex slavery. No, they're not. They're not the first victims. They're not the last victims. I think what's disgusting about this is that these people were victimized by the people whose job it is to protect them. What makes this so much worse than any other scumbag out there victimizing kids is that these people were systematically, Audra, I knew you farted in 4th grade. I actually researched that a couple of days ago. I'm sorry. Les also gave him an estate and mansion in a high-dollar community Lex was developing north of Columbus, Ohio, where Wexner also had an estate. Yeah, and I believe he gave him one in either Colorado or Wyoming or somewhere out in the mountains when he did his ski trips and all of that. Now, was Les Wexner, did he give him all this because he had dirt on Wexner? Well, Wexner liked young chicks. I promise you, that's not hard to research. It's fairly logical to me that that was probably the case. He had enough dirt on Les Wexner and it's just a theory, folks. I got nothing to back it up. But that passes the smell test to me, right? To me, that one makes sense. And that's sad. I wish that wasn't the case. It's frightening that he was so invested in genetic scientific research. Yeah, so many people in this, the Bill Gates thing. Bill Gates has spent a ton of money trying to keep the people in politics from releasing Epstein files. Isn't that good enough to cancel him as a human being? Isn't that enough to let us know that he's a piece of human garbage? Why would this guy want to stop this stuff from coming out? There's only one answer to that, right? And I would imagine that the answer is the same reason that his wife said, adios, right? Who says adios to a husband of X number of years when he's in the top 3 richest people on planet Earth? Well, if you find out he's a child molester, that's a pretty quick out. Wexner is a weasel. You're damn right he is. You're damn right he is. He's absolutely a weasel. I think everyone who was involved with Epstein has something on the next one so that they are all keeping their mouths shut to protect themselves. That's logical as hell. But I'll tell you what else to me is logical. You get a hold of this list, right? And you find out that 40% of the people on the list are politicians. You got any idea how difficult it would be for somebody whose ethics are slightly askew to not go, yeah, we could turn this over to the people, or I could just ensure that these people vote for everything I want them to vote for the rest of the time that I'm in office. And it's sad, but that's where my head goes. My head goes to, this is such an opportunity for people that are trying to gain power, right? The Mossad, if they did this, and I believe that they did, and I think that there's a decent amount of evidence to prove it, right? There are people that have come out that said, yeah, I was there. I was her handler. This guy definitely worked for us. But on top, yeah, it's enough to make you grit your teeth, right? Epstein had a disturbing fascination with eugenics, and he wanted to impregnate tons of girls on his island, find the children with his DNA. There's a lot. I've read a bunch about that he was super, and eugenics, for those who may not be aware, that Margaret Sanger was a big proponent of this. So was Hitler. You know who else was? Bill Gates' dad. In fact, he worked one-on-one with Margaret Sanger. They started what would become later on Planned Parenthood. When they started it, they called it the Negro Project. I'm not kidding. You can't make this stuff up. But they were helping abortions take place in primarily black neighborhoods, and they were aborting children that they didn't think they wanted on Earth. Say what you will, that's my take. It's just so disturbing that the people who are supposed to protect the citizens are the people who are allegedly committing the crimes or protecting those who are committing the crimes. You're absolutely right. Hitler got his eugenics idea from the USA. You're right. You're absolutely right, he did. And the idea of eugenics, like if you find out, if there's somebody who has a birth defect or a genetic defect, you got to get rid of those people. Like my daughter, who was born with half a heart. something called hyperplastic left heart syndrome. Would have been one of those people that they would have liked to remove from the earth. And I'll tell you what an amazing kid. Well, she's not a kid anymore. She's a young woman, and beat the odds and is, living and living good. I hate the concept. There are people out there that believe we'd be better off if we killed people that don't come out perfect, because I sure as hell didn't come out perfect. Nobody is. What do you think will actually be enough to bring forward the end result of convictions? Dane, I think this is such a, I don't think we're going to see convictions in this. I wish more than anything in the world that this would happen. I wish that people would pay for this, but I don't think anyone's going to pay for this. I don't. And that's heartbreaking. When they auctioned off his black book, right, which just had a list of names in it. I said a lot of these names last night, but I will say it again. Mick Jagger, Courtney Love, Bill Gates, Naomi Campbell, Fidel Castro, Michael Jackson, Andrew Cuomo, Alec Baldwin, Ethel Kennedy. Now I'll tell you something. If you've got Fidel Castro's name in your little black book, trust me, the CIA knows when you fart too. I promise. I'm sure that the file on Epstein, if he wasn't working for us, was thick, because we were really preoccupied with old Fidel Castro, right? More than just about anything else. What do you think will actually end? I don't think anything will be enough. I wish that but I think we're going to see a lot more get released. And we're going to see a lot more get released because the midterms are coming up. It's just shitty, but it's the truth, isn't it? Midterms are coming up. And traditionally, the party in office does not do well during midterms. Really, traditionally, that's how it goes. And if it did go well, then it would really give the Republicans a chance to sort of really bring all of the power together. But right now, even the MAGA people aren't happy, right? Even the people that are really diehard for the president aren't happy. And he's going to have to do something before the midterms to make that happen. So his daughter-in-law, the former head of the Republican Party, or the spokeswoman, both, and the spokeswoman for the Republican Party, all of these people have come out and said, not so fast. There is more stuff coming out. You think they just forgot that? No, I think that this number's going on, right? They're testing the air, so to speak. Miss Weedy Poo, good to see you. Glad you're here. They're taking the temperature of the U.S. people, and the U.S. people are pissed. So if they don't release more stuff, right, then yeah, MAGA wants the Epstein files released. And why? Well, they were promised, right? That's I'm not going to lie to you. It was a huge part of me voting for the guy. I covered the Epstein thing. That's been a big on this channel. I've talked about the Epstein suicide, right? There's a word you can't say online. I've talked about the Epstein suicide from Jump Street. And the reason I did is I've spent a lot of time in federal prison. I spent a lot of time in the SHU. I worked in a program called My Brother's Keeper. That's the people that watch folks on suicide watch. So if there's a guy on suicide watch, they put him in front of a glass door, not a regular cell door. He may be in the SHU. In some prisons, the observation cell is in the SHU, often. But some prisons, it's in medical. Either way, there is a door that is glass. It's not a regular door. It's got thick, huge, glass you can't kick out. And a guy sits in a chair like this and stares through that glass at the person on the other side. They do it in 4-hour shifts for $1 an hour. And $1 an hour is huge in prison, huge. And the idea is they want to get you to talk. They don't just sit and watch you. Ideally, they want to get the inmate who's talking about killing themselves and committing suicide to speak. Now, they told us Epstein was on suicide watch a week before, I believe, right? 7 days before he had been put on suicide watch. You don't go from suicide watch to having a cellmate. You go from suicide watch to observation. Everything they said from an inmate's standpoint was such a lie that's why I started talking about this. Having such a compromised president is a nightmare. We have lost our sovereignty with Israel versus Russia, Iran, both, with the goods to fry Trump. Yeah, I mean, we're anytime anybody has anything on the president, we're in bad shape. Now, I don't know exactly what's going on. Again, Michael, and I could be wrong. This is my theory. But my theory is once they got everything, the ability to use that book as power was so inviting. I mean, the fact that they ran 2 bills through that, number one, that big, beautiful bill or whatever, how did that get pushed through? Yes, Audra Trump is guilty of sin with Epstein's young girls. Horrific. Yeah, Trump, here's the thing. I don't know that Trump is guilty and of being in with the little girls and all that. I don't. And I'll tell you something. I don't have a problem with coming and destroying him if he is. I don't have a problem with that at all. Right? I don't. No problem. I'd be happier than hell to do that. But try researching it. And you're not really going to come up with that. And you have to be willing, when you do research, you have to go, who's telling this information? Because there are some people that are such ideologues. If every single thing they've ever said has been negative about a person, then it's hard to take the next story seriously. It's really interesting when someone like Tucker Carlson comes out and says, this stinks and I'm pissed at the president because he campaigned for him, right? Those kind of people, I have an easier time taking seriously. But if you're someone that makes a living destroying a party, if I come out tomorrow and I start saying something that is just completely the opposite of everything I've ever said, chances are there's something really heavy that caused that to happen. Hey, Kathy, Dershowitz hasn't always defended the good guys, but he's legally proven himself spotless in this case. I agree with you. I don't think that he's got any guilt in this case. But the number of people that said he molested girls on that island who still say it are all over the place. Why? Because it's truthy, right? It's so true that no fact will ever make it otherwise. And you know what? There are people, unfortunately, that are such ideologues that they will say, this guy's guilty of this, even if there's not a whole lot of evidence to back it up. And I promise you, I found one person who absolutely says, yeah, Trump was with young girls. You can see spots on his pants and this and that. There's not much else to back it up. Sorry, there isn't. And it doesn't pass the smell test that if you knew you were in this and you knew you were guilty, that you're going to spend your entire campaign making this one of the pillars that you ran on. That doesn't pass the smell test. He didn't need to make this one of the pillars. A hell of a communicator. He could have picked any number of other things. Granted, this got the conspiracy theory community, right, which is a large community. I'm a member of it. It got a lot of us to want to vote for the guy, but he could have done the same thing with any of the other conspiracy theories, for real. In fact, some of them might have been bigger. There are people that have been pissed since Roswell, New Mexico. If he had run on we're going to release all the FBI files, but he said we were going to release JFK, Martin Luther King, right, all of these things. And Epstein, he talked about it constantly. I think if he had been one of the people that was down there banging kids, that it would have been a little too risky to run on that. And if you did, you certainly wouldn't have sent Bondi and all of the other people out going, phase 1, got the book right here. Wait till you see phase 2 and 3. Set that up just to look like a jackass when you pull the rug out a little bit later. That doesn't pass the smell test. It's just stupid. That means he literally set himself up for all the bad crap. His number is plummeting. He knew he was going to do that? That doesn't make any sense. None. If he was knee-deep guilty in the girl stuff, he knew that this is what was going to happen. No, I don't think so. Doesn't make sense. I think he thought he could put this on the Democrats. He thought that most of the people in that dossier were going to be people that he really wanted to railroad. He thought Bill Clinton is going to be Clinton, what was the quote? Somebody said, what about Bill Clinton? He said, nice guy. He's a nice guy. But I think he's going to have a lot of problem because of that island with Epstein and all of that. Just kept talking about how he couldn't wait to release those files. If you knew you were in the files and there was maybe video of you out there, that's a dangerous ass game to play and one you didn't need to. Why bring it up? It's not like people were saying, I'm not voting for you unless you handle the Epstein thing. He chose to make that one of the pillars of what he ran on. That is a really touchy thing. Chicken Cherry Cola. A lot of people don't like Tucker, and it doesn't bother me if you don't. I'm not here to say I like Tucker. I'm here to say I put a lot more faith in somebody that campaigned for a guy who then says, no, My heart's broken on this. That is somebody that doesn't smell like an ideologue to me. The people that will ride with the president, even if they think he is lying and cheating and all that, I got no desire to hear from those people, right? They don't have credibility. And on the same token, if you've spent your entire life trashing this man, then it doesn't make a whole lot of difference to me if you're now trashing him on this. No credibility. But people that have taken a stance where they believe what is right, whether you like what they say or not, when someone says, well, I believed this, I ran on this, I spent all of this time campaigning for him, and now I'm sick to my stomach. Well, like you or hate you, I got to believe that that's a little bit more credible than the people that have been just screaming that, he's this, he's that, right? He colluded with Russia. Folks, every single phone call, every single text message, and every single email that is sent in the United States of America is captured and recorded and kept in Bountiful, Utah, at a massive center that is nothing but an entire farm of just computer towers, right? Just stacks and stacks of them as far as the eye can see. One of the largest buildings you've ever seen. And all it's doing is holding all of that information. So when they say, was he reaching out to these people? Trust me when I tell you, every single call he ever made to anybody was recorded. Every one. But it requires a little bit of critical thinking. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. But all of those Republicans today voted against a bill to release the Epstein files. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They may report that to you, but they voted against a bill that was about cryptocurrency. And at the last minute, they put a procedural thing onto that bill that said something about Epstein. That's not the same thing, right? If you earmark it to something, they can't vote for the Epstein thing without also voting for the bill that they may not believe anything on. And they do this all the time. They will earmark something on it, knowing that the other party is guaranteed to vote against it because of what the actual bill is. Then they can come out and say, they said they wanted to release these files, right? By the way, I swear to you, in this, I got a list of every single name. I was going to come on here and read it. I want to crucify anybody that wants to bury this. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. It's 1,000 victims, all underage women, girls, now they're women. Those are the people that we should be riding with. Right, left, independent. We owe it to those 1,000 victims. You're going to sit and say, we can't release that stuff because it's child pornography. Well, no shit, it's child pornography, right? That's what we're talking about. 2005, you can pixelate that girl out of the picture. I promise you, easily. And you know what? We really want to know who the guy is in the picture, because Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for selling kids to no one. That doesn't make any sense. None. Doesn't make any sense. If there's 1,000 victims, then there are Johns, right? If there are 1,000 girls that were sold, somebody bought them. And I don't care who you voted for. I don't care who your dad and mom voted for, which probably has something to do with why we lean in the direction we lean anyway, right? Truthfully. I don't care what your political leanings is. Makes no difference to me, because we're talking about 1,000 victims. So if you're just a Trump guy, I don't give a crap. Or if you hate the guy, I don't care about that much either. Because pure as hell and plain and simple, my issue, and I told people, right? My issue was the southern border and all the dope coming across it. 300 people a day dying from drug overdoses and it being the #1 cause of death in America. That was my issue. And it made me sick to my stomach that the people voting against the wall, every time he brought it up, 3 years earlier had voted for a wall. And by the way, both sides of that. Were the Republicans voting for the wall the first time? No, because they didn't want to give the Democrats a win. And then when a new guy comes up, Trump comes in and says, we got to do something about the southern border. All of a sudden, all those people say, oh, it's racism. You can't build a wall. You wanted the wall 4 years earlier. But it's okay if 300 people a day die if you get the political clout off of it. Just like it's okay if 1,000 girls get sold to disgusting men that want to have sex with kids. As long as you're getting some video on it, we get those people to vote the way we want. That would be by any means necessary, right? Get a look at my thumbnail. Our country's split in half and it's sinking. And it's sinking because there are people out there that are just going to put politics before those 1,000 kids. And you know what? I don't care about politics. Not if the other issue is 1,000 kids. I voted for this guy. And I'm very unhappy right now that I did. No, I'm not. Because the other side, I couldn't have voted for that person. But I'm so bummed out at what he's doing since getting in there. It's staggering. You know, that you ran on this, and then what? You got it in your hand? Now, if I'm wrong, and it's not the fact that once he saw the names, he wanted to use it for leverage to do whatever he wanted as president, if I'm wrong on that, and it's just that he is under the foot of Israel, and that's it, you know what? That doesn't give you a pass either. It doesn't. You got to come out and say, hey, you know what? We've been under their foot for this long. It's been this, this, and this, right? You run for president, your life is on the line. That's not something that should be a shock to people that run for president. If this isn't worth dying for, what is? Honestly. If we're that screwed up as a country that by any means necessary is now our motto, just like it's the Mossad's, then I don't want anything to do with you. I really don't. Republican or Democrat, you suck. If you're okay covering this up, I don't care what party you're on, you suck. This shouldn't have anything to do with politics. This isn't a political thing. This is child molestation. This is rape, not with a G, with an R. This is rape. Systematic, right? Engineered rape of kids for the purpose of pushing a political agenda. God help us, what's happened to us? For real, what the hell has happened to us? How did Epstein have to do to get 3 hours and 40 minutes of talking on the phone, right? In a federal prison, they let him out. If they let you for 3 hours and 40 minutes make an unmonitored phone call and you're in unit E lower, right? You're in echo lower, that's a shock. But you're in the SHU, you're not allowed out of your cell without one set in the special management unit. But anyway, in a regular SHU, you don't leave the cell unless you're handcuffed. You put your hands through the food slot, they put cuffs on. That's the only way you can leave your cell. If you make a phone call, you're in your cell. They bring the phone up to it, and you lean in there, you dial the little thing, it comes on a wheel. I did it once a month for 3 years and 4 months. It's the only way I made a phone call, once a month. Nobody was handing me a cordless and saying, yeah, it's unmonitored, knock yourself out. Call whoever you want. 3 hours and 40 minutes out of his cell in the SHU. What, walking around on a cordless? How did that work? And what did he have to do to get it? It's a really excellent question. It's a really excellent question because he didn't commit suicide. I don't buy that. You're never going to make me believe that. There's no way on God's green earth you will ever get me to believe that. It doesn't make sense. And here's why it doesn't make sense, right? Look at this just purely from a who was this guy, right? He had a hearing coming up within about 7 to 8 days where he was going to try to get a bail hearing. And they were actually giving him one, which is insane, right? Because normally this is not something that you would even get a bail hearing. But why kill yourself before the bail hearing? Wait till the bail hearing's over and you find out that there's not a chance of you getting out, because I'm sure that if he got out on the bail hearing, he was hauling ass. He was going to be gone so fast, it was incredible, probably to Israel. But why kill yourself 7 days before that? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. He had also gotten out of every bit of trouble he had ever been in. Hell, he had already been convicted of raping somebody, and he got weekends. He got convicted of raping multiple girls, right? He was a convicted child molester. What made this so much scarier? The amount of ass covering in Epstein's case is astounding. Poor girls must feel betrayed. Where is their justice? I'll tell you how betrayed they feel. They're all hiding. And you know something? Do you believe that Gouffre killed herself? Do you believe that? Who comes out and says, I was in a car wreck, my kidneys were damaged, I really want to talk to my kids, I'm going to be dead before about 4 or 5 days, and then commit suicide? Again, that doesn't pass the smell test to me. It doesn't. All of that just smelled awful. I hope she has found peace where she's at, because she sure as hell didn't get much of a shake down here. Do me a favor, people. I always say, between now and the next time I see you, put a little love in your heart. Was it too much yoga or bad ceviche that made Johnny unwell? It was too much working out. It was also, there's a lot of poison getting out of our system for real. I feel cheated that I was lied to, not getting rid of Medicare, yeah, here you go. Not getting rid of Medicare, not putting us in a position to be in another war, promises to have total transparency, lies, lies, lies. You know what? Kimberly feels lied to. If she had voted against him, I don't think she would have felt lied to. She has credibility with me, right? She has big credibility with me, because if you voted for somebody, but you're not such an ideologue that he can do whatever he wants for the rest of the time he's in office and you're going to ride with him, well, then you have credibility with me. Seriously. Sonny says, honestly, brother, I don't think he was really in there for more than a photo shoot. I understand what you're saying. I really do. But if you're an intelligence agency, right, that has killed people, for a long period of time, you got hit squads, you're going to let this guy live? The risk he is to you. What are you going to do to make sure that this guy doesn't get out, end up molesting a kid wherever he ends up, and then there's egg on everybody's face all over the place? Besides, then we're talking about he was killed by the Americans. The Americans killed him, right? And then they were going to risk all of this. I don't know. I don't know that. To me, that doesn't make sense. I could be wrong. I'd be the first to admit I could be wrong. I'm wrong all the friggin' time. But if I was the Mossad and my motto was, by any means necessary, this guy, we're so much safer if he's dead. Right? His job was not to be a child molester. His job was to take pictures of child molesters. His job was to catch people doing this. And instead, he just kept continuing. Like, he got busted in Florida and then didn't stop. I think if I were running the Mossad, I sure as hell wouldn't have left him alive. Would you? Was he worth that much? Who the hell is he? Right? What's the point of leaving him alive? He was just that important. He had already served all of his purpose. Whatever the hell he was good for, he was gone. Look at how Ghislaine Maxwell's father died. Suspicious, right? He died of real odd causes. I think being in that line of work, there's a really good chance you don't retire, right? The first time they think there is a chance of something going, or us thinking he's dead. Sonny, why do that? He's that important? He's a piece of shit pedophile that they put in place, right? I think Ghislaine ran the whole thing. I really do. But he's too much of a risk. Why? It's not like you could use him for another project, right? The hell are you going to use him for? He's cooked. You're going to give him a hell of a lot of plastic surgery so he could go be a child molester somewhere else? I don't know. To me, that doesn't make sense. Could be wrong. But I could understand if he was an icon. This guy was a symbol of everything fantastic. I just don't see it. I don't. I think he had completely outused. I promise, Roberta. I completely think he had outused his. He was no longer of any use to anybody. I was wondering, did they sneak him out and he's somewhere hiding? Because the video is missing time, and I don't believe Dufresne killed herself either. Well, we do have a picture of him, and it may have just been in fact, hold on a second. Here we go. So there is a picture of him on his way into the hospital. Bag valve mask over his face so that we can't see him. As an EMT or a paramedic, that person's going to keep squeezing that. They're going to keep doing chest compressions until a doctor gets there because they can't pronounce somebody dead. But here he is 8 seconds later, and there's nobody doing any kind of bag valve mask. In fact, the guy that was doing it isn't even in the picture anymore, right? See that guy that's doing that? Now there's a woman there. That guy's gone. There's no bag valve mask. And now we can see Epstein's face. I think they took it off so that they could get a picture of him. But I don't believe after that they picked him up and brought him out or did anything else with him. I just don't. I think he had absolutely been, he had served his purpose. And when the Mossad is done with you, they'll whack you. That's my opinion. For me, I'm trying to figure out how an agent of some country was able to get into a prison to kill him, right? Too many people would know. he was murdered. Just figuring out how is hard. I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. He was running a transhuman humanism project in New Mexico with 20 women with his own seed. Shaking my head. I've heard that. I have absolutely heard that. There is stuff out there that you can read about that. He was into it. Todd, I'm with you 100%. It's and as a guy that did time in a federal prison, getting in there to make that happen. He went from an asset to a major liability, says Ann from Massachusetts, and that's the only way I can look at it. He went from an asset they used to a guy that was so much better off dead, right? Plain and simple, so much better off dead. Yeah, Debbie Zito, bringing up pictures. Pictures taken 8 seconds apart. It's pretty wild to me. It's pretty wild to me that these pictures are 8 seconds apart, right? In this picture here, he's in the hospital. In this picture, he's outside because that is a mirror right there from the ambulance. That's a quick 8 seconds, man. It really is. And the fact that there was a guy there ready to take the picture in and of itself makes no sense. Now, as far as Bongino and Kash Patel, I think both of these guys are victims. I really do. If you look at all of the interviews that these guys did prior to Trump being reelected, they were hot to trot to bust this guy. They were stoked, right, to find out what happened to these 1,000 girls and to make people accountable. They look like hostage photos. Yeah, hyoid bone broken, says Nora. Not something you can usually do to yourself, and not something that happens when you hang yourself. That happens when somebody puts their thumbs right here and squeezes down. And if you watch the video, the BS video that they show us, somebody goes up that stairs wearing an orange jumpsuit at 10:40 at night. You can see it pixelated along the side. And their story is it's somebody carrying orange clothing up the stairs. Carrying it what? Stretched all the way out 6 feet tall? That doesn't make any sense. But none of it does, right? None of it does. It's but Kash Patel and Bongino currently, I think both of them are waiting to see exactly what's going to happen. I think the reason that we haven't seen Bongino quit, which he has been threatening to do in a big way, is because there's probably been some kind of a meeting when they said something along the lines of, don't worry about it, trust me, we're going to bring more stuff out. And they're going to bring more stuff out because if not, they're going to lose the midterms. Not because all of a sudden they decided that they really need to do something about this. They were cut off at the knees, says Lisa Ayers, and you nailed it. They were cut off at the knees. These are people that were really believers. They were believers. And you know what? I think Pam Bondi was too. I watched the behavior panel religiously, and they looked at all of the body language and stuff on this. It's worth going over and looking at because it's a fantastic episode. Yeah, I suspect Patel and Bongino are trapped at this point. I agree. But it's really interesting if you watch the behavior panel talk about this. Chase Hughes said that she had in her mind, hey, V-Bombs, she had in her mind what was going to happen. She was the star in a script, so to speak. And then she found out that this script isn't what she thought. She's trapped in there like a lot of other people are. Can you imagine what this must be like? I mean, she did. She went on a thing and said, I got the list on my desk. They were excited to release these names until they weren't. Again, this is why, to me, theory, right? This is my theory. But my theory is the reason that they were all ready to release this, even the president, right? Until he wasn't. I think they found out. Once they saw everybody's name on there, they went, oh my God. So this dude who's still in office, and this dude who's still in office, and this dude who's still in office, and these people who are rich and do this, and Bill Gates and all these, the power in having the dirt on these people is why the Mossad did it in the first place. Now, whoever has that book has that power. And I think that the president of the United States found that irresistible. And that is enough to make you sick. Talking about attorneys, private investigators, and the state prosecutors, such a unique experience. This is, to me, the most logical conclusion, right? To me, the most logical conclusion is you don't run on something only intending to then pull the rug out, right? To me, the most logical explanation is once you had all of that stuff in your hand, you had the ability to go, oh my God. Oh, you're not going to vote for my bill? I think you are. Oh, I think you are. right? Do you happen to know I've got the files? Yeah. I got video of you having sex with a 15-year-old. Not only are you going to vote for this, you're going to call every swinging you know what you know, and they're going to vote for it too. I think that makes more sense than anything else. It's an opinion. I could be found wrong, but that to me makes a hell of a lot more sense. Roberta says, I always felt Bongino was an honorable man. I think that all three parties, I think that Pam Bondi, whether you like her or not, I think that she was wanting to do the right thing on this. I think Bongino and Patel wanted to do the right things on this. Todd, thank you. You know what? Todd said this better than I could have. Reminds me of Lord of the Rings and the Ring of Power. I got it. I can't destroy it. Wow, that's a great comment, Todd. There you go, people. I couldn't have said that better. This world is such a tragic and sad place that pedophiles even exist. How can people harm innocent children? Bad effing wiring. And the proof of it is not one of them has ever been cured. Nobody ever molested one kid. It's the truth. It's the truth. I'm sorry, but they should just be put down. And I don't mean, hey, you're a bad person. I mean, bang, you know what I mean? Cured by Smith & Wesson. That's how it should be. Because unfortunately, it's bad wiring. I'm not giving them a pass, but it's bad wiring. I really am attracted to women. And if you said to me, starting tomorrow morning, you're going to have to be attracted to men. I couldn't make that happen for all the money in the world. And unfortunately, pedophiles are not going to be attracted to anything other than kids. It's their defining characteristic. And there was a guy that made some videos on YouTube. He's gone, probably because YouTube will not allow people to say the word pedophile, right? They won't allow people to say the word rape. So eventually the guy kind of just went away. But this was a guy who was convicted of touching kids. And he moved out into the middle of nowhere in the sticks and put signs up that says, pedophile lives at the end of this road. Like literally. This was a guy who realized that he's got bad wiring. He doesn't have internet access, right? He went out of his way to try to make sure that he could never do it again. But he made some videos back in the day. Some of them were on YouTube where he said, I'm always going to be attracted to kids, but I'm never going to touch one again. And I've made sure that I can't. Well, that's, I remember a long time ago, I was watching the comedy thing that Robin Williams and all of those people did. I can't remember what the name of it was, but they were raising money for something. And they did this comedy special for it. But Dennis Miller came out and he was talking. And that day in the New York Times, they had talked about a person that had hurt a bunch of kids. And he said, you know what? If you wake up tomorrow morning and you find out that you're attracted to kids, do yourself a favor and lean in and take one for the team, right? Put it in your mouth and blow the top of your head off. Because I promise when you get to heaven, God will high five you. And comic relief, there you go, Ann from Massachusetts. In fact, he said, you'll get Yahweh noogies when you get to heaven. I promise you, if I wake up tomorrow and somehow I'm attracted to an 8-year-old, I'm jumping off of this balcony. And that's what should happen, right? This bad wiring is really what it is. Yep, all the names. Trump has the followers he has because he has dirt on so many people. I've been saying it for years. It's the only explanation. Well, I think that he found a whole lot more dirt. I don't know whether or not the people that follow him is because he's had dirt on them. I couldn't speak to that. But I think the Ring of Power analogy is probably about as good as it gets, right? The Ring of Power thing is just about as amazing a way to say it as I could think of, right? You get a hold of that and it's just too much to resist. And I think that that's what we're looking at. Pedophiles normally reoffend, so it's scary to think that these people are out there in positions of power. They most likely will not stop. Again, I agree. Yeah, I agree. And I think it's the reason that I don't think this guy's sitting on a beach somewhere. Too much of a risk. He was an asset. They got out of him what they wanted to. But if you put him back in the real world, he's going to go molest somebody. And then he gets arrested. And all of a sudden, I don't care what you do to a thumbprint, that they're going to figure out who that dude is. They're not risking that. They're going to take him off of planet Earth. That is my theory on this. Between now and the next time I see you, which will be tomorrow morning, right? I do a show every morning where we talk about stuff that can actually help your life, right? This stuff is important, but just look at who Trump ran against, Hillary and Biden. Good point. Between now and the next time I see you folks, put a little love in your heart. We need it. And I'll tell you something else. If your political affiliation is more important to you than those 1,000 victims, in my opinion, you're not a whole hell of a lot better than the people that did this. I'm sorry. It's how I feel. If politics is more important than all of that, then there's something so wrong with you deep down that you need to get right with God. Between now and tomorrow morning, put a little love in your heart. I love you guys. I really do. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless. Bye-bye.